My beloved child, before this moment passes, I need you to stay with me for a moment. There are times when a single conversation quietly changes the direction of someone's heart forever, and today we are reflecting on one of those moments. Someone connected to your story received a phone call they never expected. At first, they believed it would be another ordinary discussion, but every word they heard challenged the assumptions they had been carrying for so long. They realized they had been looking at your story through a narrow window instead of the full picture. As this unfolds, clarity will come. Imagine standing at the edge of a sunrise after a long night, where every second reveals a little more light. That is what this moment feels like. The call did not force anyone's feelings. Instead, it encouraged honest reflection, reminding them of the kindness, patience, and quiet strength they had overlooked. Something huge is waiting for you, but before that truth becomes clear, remember that the greatest changes often begin in silence, long before anyone else notices them. As the conversation continued, the voice on the other end did not speak with anger or pressure. Instead, it asked simple questions that lingered in the heart. Have you truly remembered every moment? Did you notice the support that was always there? Those questions became impossible to ignore. Suddenly, memories returned one after another. Small moments that once seemed ordinary but now carried deep meaning. The laughter that brought comfort, the encouragement during uncertain days, and the quiet loyalty that expected nothing in return all came rushing back. This may resonate as we continue, because sometimes people only recognize the value of something after they pause long enough to see it clearly. That realization did not happen in a dramatic instant. It unfolded step by step, leaving a lasting impression that could no longer be dismissed. What seemed like an ordinary phone call became the beginning of a completely different perspective. By the time the conversation reached its final moments, a calm certainty had replaced confusion. No promises were made, and no impossible predictions were spoken. Instead, there was a peaceful understanding that some connections deserve another thoughtful look rather than a quick conclusion. The person on the call gently reminded them that fear often speaks louder than hope, but truth has a way of returning when the heart is willing to listen. Those words stayed with them long after the call ended. They found themselves reflecting instead of reacting, appreciating instead of assuming. If you've stayed with me this far, keep listening, because the next part reveals what happened after the phone was over, and why those quiet moments of reflection became even more meaningful than the conversation itself. Before we continue, take a deep moment to reflect on your own journey. Every meaningful connection teaches us something valuable about patience, understanding, and growth. Sometimes the greatest turning points are not loud announcements but quiet decisions made within the heart. Stay with me for a moment, because what follows is not about coincidence, it is about recognizing the importance of honest reflection and renewed perspective. The story is only beginning, and the next chapter uncovers what happened after the silence settled, revealing why this unexpected phone call became a moment neither of them would easily forget. The silence after that phone call felt different. It was no longer empty, it was filled with questions that refused to disappear. Every familiar place suddenly carried a memory, and every quiet moment invited deeper reflection. The person who had ended the call couldn't simply move on as if nothing had happened. They replayed every sentence, every pause, and every reminder they had just heard. What surprised them most was not the information itself, but how differently they now viewed everything connected to you. Stay with me for a moment, because this is where the story begins to unfold in an unexpected way. As this unfolds, clarity will come. They realized that many of their previous conclusions had been built on assumptions instead of understanding. Instead of rushing toward another decision, they chose something far more powerful. They decided to slow down and truly reflect. Something huge is waiting for you, and sometimes it begins with a single choice to see someone through a kinder and wiser perspective. The following morning brought an unusual sense of peace. Instead of reacting emotionally, they opened old conversations in their mind and remembered the encouragement, patience, and sincerity they had once overlooked. Little details suddenly carried great meaning. The kindness they once considered ordinary now felt extraordinary. The support they once expected now seemed like a priceless gift. This may resonate as we continue, because many people don't recognize the value of someone until they stop listening to fear and start listening to truth. It became impossible for them to ignore how much their perspective had shifted in just one night. Every answer they searched for seemed to point toward the same lesson: genuine connections deserve understanding before judgment. If this story is speaking to you so far, share this video with someone who believes that hope can grow through understanding, subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter, and leave a comment telling us what part has resonated with you the most. Your support allows these uplifting stories to reach more people who may need them today. Now keep listening, because the most meaningful part of this journey has not arrived yet. The phone call may have ended, but its impact was only beginning. The next step they took revealed something even more surprising, something that quietly reshaped the way they viewed the future and the role you played within it. As the day came to a close, they understood that true change rarely arrives with loud celebrations. It often begins with a quiet decision inside the heart to let go of old misunderstandings and welcome a clearer perspective. They felt a sense of gratitude replacing uncertainty, and with every passing hour, their confidence in that new understanding continued to grow. Stay with me for a moment, because the next part reveals the unexpected action they took after embracing this new perspective, and why that decision became the turning point that nobody saw coming. A new day arrived, but this time everything felt different. The conversation from the phone call was no longer just a memory, it had become a quiet guide influencing every decision that followed. They found themselves pausing before speaking, reflecting before making assumptions, and remembering moments they had nearly forgotten. Stay with me for a moment, because what happened next was something they never expected. While looking back, they realized that the strongest connections are not built through perfect circumstances but through patience, understanding, and genuine care. As this unfolds, clarity will come. Every memory seemed to fit together like pieces of a puzzle, revealing a picture they had never fully seen before. What once appeared ordinary now carried extraordinary meaning, and they could no longer ignore the change happening within their own heart. Later that day, an unexpected conversation with someone they trusted brought even more insight. Without mentioning your name at first, they described everything they had been thinking since that life-changing phone call. The response surprised them. Instead of offering quick advice, the trusted voice simply smiled and said, "Sometimes the greatest gift is realizing the value of someone before it's too late to appreciate them." Those words echoed through their mind for hours. This may resonate as we continue, because wisdom often arrives through simple reminders rather than dramatic speeches. At that moment, they understood that the phone call had not changed reality, it had changed the way they were looking at reality. And once perspective changes, every future decision begins to change with it. That evening, they quietly reflected on the moments that had shaped their journey. They remembered encouragement during difficult seasons, kindness that asked for nothing in return, and hope that remained even when circumstances felt uncertain. Instead of focusing on what had gone wrong, they began appreciating everything that had quietly gone right. Their heart felt lighter than it had in a long time. There was no need for rushed conclusions anymore. Instead, there was peace in allowing truth to unfold naturally. Something huge is waiting for you, but it isn't found in noise, it grows through understanding, patience, and the courage to see someone with fresh eyes. As the night settled in, one final realization stood above all the others. They knew they could no longer let old misunderstandings shape tomorrow. A new chapter was beginning, built not on fear but on honesty, respect, and hope. Stay with me for a moment, because the next part reveals the meaningful step they decided to take after this realization, a step that quietly transformed everything they believed about your connection and opened the door to a future they never imagined possible. What happened next wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, thoughtful, and impossible to ignore. After days of reflecting on that unexpected phone call, they finally made a decision that surprised even themselves. Instead of holding on to old assumptions, they chose to approach the future with a renewed sense of understanding. Stay with me for a moment, because this is where everything begins to come together. As this unfolds, clarity will come. They realize that some of the strongest bonds are strengthened not by perfect moments, but by the willingness to grow beyond misunderstandings. The conversation that once seemed ordinary had become the spark that inspired a completely different outlook. Something huge is waiting for you, and sometimes the biggest turning points begin with the smallest moments of honesty. Soon afterward, they found themselves smiling at memories that had once brought uncertainty. Every act of kindness, every encouraging word, and every shared moment now carried a deeper meaning. It felt as though a missing piece had finally been found. Instead of asking, "What if things never change?" they began asking, "What if this is the beginning of something better?" This may resonate as we continue, because life often surprises us when we stop expecting the worst and start appreciating the lessons we've already received. That single phone call had not written their future. It had simply opened their eyes to possibilities they had never considered before. If this story has stayed with you until now, share it with someone who could use a message of hope, subscribe so you don't miss the final chapter, and let us know which moment touched your heart the most. Your support helps these encouraging stories reach people who may need them today. Now keep listening, because the final chapter reveals the greatest lesson hidden behind this entire journey. The answer isn't found in one conversation alone, it's found in what someone chooses to do after their perspective has changed. As the sun set on that unforgettable chapter, peace replaced uncertainty. They understood that meaningful connections grow stronger through honesty, patience, and gratitude. The phone call had ended long ago, but its message continued shaping every step they took afterward. They carried forward a renewed appreciation for the people who had quietly made a difference in their life. Stay with me for a moment, because the final part reveals the lasting lesson this journey leaves behind, a reminder that one sincere conversation can become the beginning of a wiser, kinder, and more hopeful future. The final chapter of this journey begins with a quiet truth. Looking back, they realized the phone call had never been about changing your worth. It had been about changing their perspective. Everything they believed they understood was gently reshaped through patience, reflection, and honesty. Stay with me for a moment, because this is the piece that brings the entire story together. As this unfolds, clarity will come. They discovered that some of life's greatest moments arrive without applause. They begin when a heart becomes willing to see beyond old assumptions and embrace a clearer understanding. That single conversation became the turning point they never expected, reminding them that genuine connections are strengthened when people choose wisdom over fear and understanding over misunderstanding. With that realization came an overwhelming sense of gratitude. They no longer focused on what they couldn't change. Instead, they appreciated every lesson, every challenge, and every meaningful memory that had quietly shaped their journey. They understood that every season had prepared them to recognize the value of kindness, patience, and unwavering hope. This may resonate as we continue, because every person watching this has experienced moments when one conversation, one act of compassion, or one unexpected reminder completely changed the way they looked at life. Sometimes the greatest gift isn't receiving new information, it's finally understanding what has been there all along. Something huge is waiting for you whenever you choose to move forward with faith, wisdom, and an open heart. As this story comes to its conclusion, remember that the most meaningful transformations often happen within. No dramatic announcement was needed. No impossible event had to occur. A heart simply became willing to listen, reflect, and grow. That is the lasting message behind this journey. Every day offers another opportunity to choose understanding instead of assumption, hope instead of doubt, and gratitude instead of regret. The unexpected phone call became unforgettable because it inspired a new way of thinking, one that continued long after the conversation had ended. Before you leave, carry this thought with you: the words we hear may last only a few moments, but the wisdom we accept can shape our future for years to come. Stay with that truth whenever life presents an unexpected conversation or an opportunity to see someone through fresh eyes. The greatest turning points are often the quietest ones, and the next meaningful chapter of your own journey begins with the choices you make today. Until our next story, keep moving forward with courage, kindness, and hope, because every new day holds the possibility of a beautiful beginning.